Welcome back, everyone. For today's video, I found this amazing story where we're gonna see 56 tactical patterns. They're gonna be easy to solve, but feel free to pause the video at any time if you don't see the solution, the best move. So this is gonna be white to play, and then we take this bishop. The name of this tactic is attraction. So we're attracting the square, we're attracting the enemy to a square where you can exploit it. So the king is forced to move to f6. Now we can skewer the rook. So yeah, we just take the rook and it's completely winning for white. We're gonna go in alphabetical order. This is going to be a battery. So a battery is when two or more pieces line up to work together. So here the two rooks form a battery. We can play rook d8 check. Once the rook takes back, the other rook is going to work as a reinforcement, right? As a support. So yeah, this is going to be checkmate. This is also a simple one. We have the battery of the queen and the bishop. White to play. Checkmate. Queen takes on g7. In this one, we also have a battery. We have lined up the two rooks, so we can get queen c1. Black, however, has this move. Rook b to c8. It's a defensive move. So now, how do you exploit this position? Once you want to retreat the bishop with the idea of going b5. So once the queen moves, let's say to e8, now you can play b5, and they cannot really move the knight, otherwise they lose the rook. They're gonna have to lose this knight. So let's say the queen moves to h5, now you can take the knight, and it's winning for white. The next tactic is clearance. So clearance is when you clear a square for another piece to use. To make it work, you often need a tempo. So in this case, you can give a check with this rook. You can sack the rook. Once the king takes, you free this square for the queen to get in. So now you can play queen h8. Once the king moves, this is a checkmate. So you clarify you clear the space for the queen to come in and deliver a checkmate. Creating targets. To create tactics, you need targets. And one target sometimes is not enough. You usually need to create a second one. In this position, black's king is a target, right? So I wish we can play queen b3 directly, but the bishop takes. What if we reverse the order and we take this bishop? So once the rook takes, you have a second target, not only the rook, but also the king. So yeah, you are also using the first tactic we use, attraction. So we are attracting the rook to this position, and if they don't want to take, you're also fine. Maybe they ignore it. Okay, you are up a rook, a full piece. In some positions, you're gonna see that there is a piece hanging. Okay, our rook is hanging. We have to do something about it. Probably move it. But the problem here is we move it. Now we lose the rook, and we lose the queen after that. And this is just losing for black. Now you have a counter threat. You don't have to actually move this rook, but we have a check here on d4. Now queen has to move, so now we can take the bishop, and that threat is gone. So think about a counter threat whenever one of your pieces is in trouble. In some positions, you're going to encounter this cross check. So our king is in trouble, we have to move it. But it just so happens that once we move the bishop to defend, this king now is in check. So they have to deal with this one first. Once the king moves, this rook is hanging. So always look for counter threats, or in this case, cross checks. I love this tactic, the decoy. In this position, there is no way to stop these two pawns. So black is threatening to take this pawn, but now you can play d6. So the king has to pursue it. Now you can play h6, so the decoy is here. Okay, the king goes to b6, and now you can play d7. King c7 tries to pursue again. Now you play a7. So there is no way to stop these two pawns. King takes on d7, and now you promote to a king. We can even go back and revise. So let's say that we play here. King takes the pawn, and now you are not on time. So yeah, that's what is gonna happen with two passed pawns that are also two squares apart. There's no way to stop them. Deflection. Deflection is almost like a distracting move where you're going to mislead a piece or remove it from its defending responsibility. In this case, we can take the rook, knight takes, so now we can give a check here. We can give a check to the bishop. If that didn't happen, we wouldn't be able to do that, right? Because the knight is covering this square on d7. So that was the whole purpose of taking this rook. And now we can win this bishop. We're entering into the demolition of pawn structure. This tactic is used to break apart the pawns, protecting the opponent's king. So it often involves a material sacrifice. But in this position, we can sacrifice the bishop. And the absolute best move in the position is just to is to play knight d5. Now you can take here with check. King has to move, and now you recover your piece. So, but the most human move is gonna be, okay, just taking this pawn, the bishop. Now you take. Once the king moves, now you're threatening to checkmate. So this is going to be checkmate in seven moves. This tactic is called desperado. So in this position, you can take the queen, and they can take your queen, and it's going to be an equal position. But you have something much better, which is taking this rook. So this rook is forced to take back, and now you take this queen that is hanging, and you are much better. You're up a rook. This one is so satisfying when you see it and when you can apply it, because it might happen frequently. So in this case, you have a discover attack. There is an alignment of the pieces. The rook is looking at the queen, and you can give a check with the bishop. So here you give a check. Once king takes, now we can take the queen. It's so satisfying. Here we have a discover attack that is also known as the windmill. So the windmill is a series of forced discover attacks that repeat like a cycle, almost like a windmill. So in this case, we can play bishop s6, which is like, wait, are we just giving up the queen? Yeah, because now we have the windmill. The king only has these two squares to escape. So now, once the king moves, we take this pawn, and the king is in check. Okay, the king moves back, we can move back, and just repeats in a cycle. We can get this bishop that is hanging, and now there is only two moves available, remember? Now we go back, and now we can win the queen. And it's just completely winning for white. So yeah, also look for this pattern. Domination of the pieces. In this case, the knight doesn't have a lot of escape squares, so you can play queen d3. And yeah, we can map it out. The knight doesn't have any squares to escape, which is really sad. And now they have to play something very depressing like h5. Now you get the knight, and it's winning. This is one of those fancy examples that are like crazy, but it has to do with the domination of the bishop. So the best move in the position is to move king h1. We're giving up the knight, and now we can promote this pawn. There is no way you can rewrite your bishop and get here on time. So wait, what if we move the bishop first? So after king h1, let's say we move bishop to d2, targeting the pawn. Yeah, now you can target the bishop and the king. What if they go to bishop to f8? The same thing, there is a fork. So we're dominating the bishop in all squares it can land. Bishop to g5, same story. Now we can play knight e6, forking the two pieces. Wait, what about bishop g7? Same story. Bishop is knight e6, forking the two pieces, and it's completely winning for white. Even if they take this pawn, now you have this extra pawn. So let's say that you take here, they takes, and now you have this passer, which is just winning. Next on the list is going to be the double attack. Feel free to pause the video and find the best move. In this position, we can play knight f5. Knight f5 is threatening checkmate. So one of the best moves is going to be, okay, let's not get checkmated and play g6. Now the checkmate is not available, but we can fork the king and the queen, and this is just lost. right? I love this combination of the rook behind the bishop, because now you have some nasty discoveries. So in this case, we have a double check. We can play rook e7, giving a check with the rook as well as with the bishop. Now king has to move. We can capture the rook. Okay, so we have drawing tactics. Sometimes you're not playing for a win, you're playing for a draw, which is completely acceptable when you're down on material or you're about to get checkmated. In this case, this is checkmate, so you have to give a check. Okay, so we go to e8, queen e8. Now king has to move. And as you can see, the king only has 2 squares to move to. So we can keep giving checks, repeating back and forth. And after 3 moves, it's going to be a 3-fold repetition. So yeah, don't be afraid of repeating moves, especially when you have these tactics. Just like the perpetual check, there will be perpetual attacks. So in this case, if you're looking for the draw, you are also playing for the win. Here we can play knight f2, attacking the queen and the rook. So sadly, the queen doesn't have a lot of space to move. So they have to go back. You can repeat moves and get the draw, because they most likely will have to repeat again this move. And by the way, here you can just take the rook, right? And it's winning. But yeah, just in case you're looking for the draw. Okay, I would encourage you to pause the video on this one. It is white to move and make the draw. So nasty. So I hope you find it. Now you can play queen g7 check. If the king moves, they have to take, right? They have to take. And now this is a stalemate. King doesn't have any moves and it's not in check. So that's why I tell people, don't resign. Never resign. Even with this, you have tactics that are drawing the game. In this position, it is black to play. And as an instinct is going to be try to promote the pawn, right? Maybe we want to play king b2 and try to win this, get this queen, and it's going to be a draw. But here you have also this clever move, king a1. So if the queen takes, now you don't have any available moves. This is a stalemate. Okay, we're entering the endgame tactics. So the white rook is blocking the pawn, right? We want to promote this pawn, but you can just simply play rook c8. Once the king moves, let's say they attack our rook, now we can promote. And once they take, we take. And yeah, we have a winning position with white. In this position is very similar. However, the king is closer to the back rank. So now let's say that we play rook c8. That's not possible because we just lose all the pieces. Now, what if we play rook e8? This is really clever because once the rook takes, now we can give a check here and win the rook. What happens if they just go... Okay, what if... sorry, here. What happens if they move the king? Okay, now we can promote this pawn to a queen. They take and we take back. So it's still winning. The square of f2 or f7, it can be f2 or f7, are going to become weaknesses, natural weaknesses in any position. So in this case, we can play a fancy move. We can sack the knight. It's attacking the queen and the rook. So the king is going to move. We can deliver a check here with the queen. And the king, again, is going to have an instinct of protecting the knight, right? Which was hanging. Attack twice. Now we can attack it another time. And there is a pin. So this knight cannot be moved. So, okay, what the game might continue. They might threaten a fork here. You can just simply castle and the game is winning. The game is winning for white. We have a nasty fork, which is one of the most common patterns in chess because it looks at the alignment of 2 pieces, even when it's in direct alignment. So in this case, we have a move, queen d4. Queen d4 is attacking this knight, but it's also threatening to checkmate. So let's say they play f6. Now we can take this knight. We're gonna look for a knight fork in this position. So the knight is always a tricky piece, isn't it? We have this fancy move, a queen sacrifice, but it's only temporary because once the king moves, now we're forking the 2 pieces, winning the queen. This is going to be called the hit and run. The hit and run because you capture 2 enemy pieces in a row while escaping from the first capture. So let's look at this position. The bishop is holding a lot of pieces, a lot of control in this position, so he's defending this rook. At the same time, we have the threat of this queen that is hanging. However, we have an excellent move here, which is getting rid of this bishop. So okay, we hit, we give up this rook. If this happens, then now we take this rook. So a common sense move will be just to take the queen. They take the queen, and now we just give a check here, and it's completely winning. This is going to be a recurrent theme in chess, the Greek gift sacrifice or the classic bishop sacrifice. So we have some requirements for this sacrifice to work. We're gonna sacrifice this bishop on this diagonal, so you need the bishop ideally on d3. It can also work if you have it here, for example. The other thing is you need this knight to continue the game, to continue the sacrifice. So you need the knight on f3 and a piece that is going to defend it, which is going to be the bishop, and of course the queen on d1. So you need these 3 pieces in this position. You can go for the Greek gift sacrifice. So we start with the sacrifice. The king has to take. They don't have to take, but they also get into a lot of trouble, and I guess they can always move, right? But let's just go with this version where the king takes, and now we have a check. So we have a check in this position. King has to move back. Now we're threatening queen h5, we're threatening queen h7. So one of the best moves in the position is to take this queen, and now, okay, black is lost on material, but the game continues. Another try would be, which is losing, just completely losing, but just to show you, they might move the rook e8. So this is just completely lost, and black might as well just resign right after king g8, king h7, king f8, king h8, king e7. This is going to be a checkmate. So yeah, this is a very powerful sacrifice. An indirect defense. So in this case, white is going to play a brilliant move, which doesn't seem like he's doing a lot. It just looks like he's losing material. Knight d7. So we're forking the 2 rooks, and you would think, wait, can we just take this knight? No, because now you have this discover attack. So you can give a check here with the bishop. Once the king takes, the queen is hanging. So we are indirectly defending the knight. With this tactic, the queen can never take. One of the rooks has to move. Okay, we're still winning. This is going to be an interference, where you put a piece interfering a defensive task, or maybe an attacking task that a piece is performing. So in this case, we can play b5. b5, now we're cutting the communication of the bishop and the rook. So let's say that they take this pawn. We can not only take this rook, but this bishop is also hanging. So yeah, we are just much better. Alright, opposition. This is not about tactics, it's more about your technique. A technique where your king controls the movement of the other king. So you can use it to gain control of important squares by outflanking the enemy king. So in this case, you can take the opposition by playing king b7. So they're looking at each other. You also can remember that you want to be 1 square apart here. So here, not only taking the pawn, but you're also gaining the position. Also a few moves later, now the kings are looking at each other, and now you can also advance the pawn, right? So you advance the pawn, and there is nothing to prevent from promoting. It's completely winning. You're getting the queen next. To be honest, I didn't see the move immediately on this one, but here you can play an incredible move, which doesn't seem to be a lot, but you can use the power of passed pawns. So you can play rook d1. So this move obstructs their first rank, so they can never play this move because now your rook is occupying the first rank, right? Now, once the king takes, you are about 1 move. You're about 1 move to promote, and it's just much better. I'm glad I found this example because this is completely winning for white. So in this occasion, you can create a pawn breakthrough. You always start with the pawn in the center, and what you're going to do is sacrifice 2 pawns to get to promotion. So you start with g6, and here you have to remain flexible to see how black captures. So let's say that they capture with the f pawn. They take on g6. So now you want to push this pawn, and they're kind of forced to take, right? They cannot ignore it. Otherwise, you just capture this pawn and promote faster. So they take, and now you have this passer. What happens if they take back? Okay, remember, we start with the center. What happens if they take back with this pawn? So now we can push f6, and again, they have to take back. They have to take back this pawn. If they ignore it, now you're just promoting this pawn. So once they take back, now your pawn is advancing, and you can get the queen. We have seen this pattern in the geometry of chess videos, where whenever you see two pieces that are separated by one square apart, then you can play this move. Okay, we can play f5. The pawn is defended by the knight. Once the knight moves, let's say, now we can capture the bishop. So there are occasions where you don't promote to a queen. You actually promote to other piece to avoid getting into trouble. Or in this case, you will stalemate the opponent if you promote to a queen. This is a stalemate because now the king doesn't have any squares available to travel. Right? This diagonal is covered by the bishop, and these 3 squares covered by the queen. What do? If you promote to a knight, now this is a draw because your knight doesn't have a lot of squares, and this is going to happen. So you cannot win with only one piece. You have to promote to a rook. Okay, so once this happens, oh no, I chose other piece. Okay, once this happens, now yeah, you are cutting off the king. The king still has this square available, so you can even go here and bring your king, and yeah, this is just winning. We're getting now into the pins. So a pin occurs when an attack piece cannot move without exposing an even more valuable piece behind it. So the queen is in front of the more valuable king. We can play bishop c4, and let's say the king moves. So okay, we are winning the pin. This is the absolute pin. Okay, we see now a relative pin. The piece that is in front is going to have less value than the piece that is behind it. So here it's easy to see bishop a6, rook moves, so we take the knight. This is going to be an example of a situational pin. So in this occasion we have rook c1. The knight cannot really move because if the knight moves, now we have this attack on the king. King has to move, we get the rook. So one of the best moves in the position is just to push this pawn. We get the king, and now we have time to castle. Well, not in this occasion, but we have we can move the king out of the way, and the rook is still on the game. For the experts in cross pins, you should be able to see this one. Feel free to pause the video. It's gonna be a cross pin. This one occurs when a piece is attacked from 2 directions. So we can play queen d2. So the bishop cannot move because it's being pinned by the black bishop. And so you cannot capture the queen. What do? One of the best moves in the position is to take the bishop, and now you can take the queen. The author of this story called this positional tactics. I don't know about the name, but it's still a good concept. Here we have a bad bishop. Why don't we play bishop b4? So if bishop is traded, now we get a better position with our queen. Rooks are coming in, we can target this pawn, and yeah, it's just much better to play, much easier to play for white. A nice idea in all games. Why don't we prevent the opponent from castling? In this position we can play bishop a6. So after that, they cannot castle, and we can castle our own king. So once the king moves, we castle, and it's super difficult to play with white. They have this trouble, the rooks are disconnected, And we can bring also the rooks. It's just much easier. This one is about the coordination of the pieces. So the knight is defending the queen. When do we remove the defender of this piece? And this one comes with check. They have to take back. We take the queen. It's all good. Another example of removing the defender. In this occasion, we also have this rook that is overloaded. It has too many tasks. It's not only defending this bishop, but also defending the back rank. We can take the bishop, and if they take back, now we have checkmate on the back rank. This is going to be a sacrifice, the same position as the first example. I hope you remember. So we can sack the rook, king has to take back, and now we have this rook. When you're winning and you know that you have a clear advantage, you can go for simplification of the position, which means trading pieces. So in this case, we're better because we have the passer, we have the pass pawn. The rest of the pieces are about the same, 3 versus 3 pawns, 2 knights looking at each other, rook and queen. So, okay, we can go for this trade of rooks. Once the queen takes, we even have this check. So only defensive move in the position is to go back. We trade queens, we trade knights, sorry, and now we are advancing this pawn. And in any case, this one is going to be as well a threat. And just the king doesn't have enough time. You also have enough time to protect your pawns. Everything is great. In pretty much most tactics, you want to look for the alignment of the pieces. Queen and knight are on the same line, so we can attack it. Queen has to move, let's say a6, and we can take now this knight. Also, be careful with the back rank. Here we don't really have a problem, but also be aware of your own threats, of the threats. Tempo tactics. The key idea is that tempo moves will help you gain an extra move, so which is a key part of many tactical ideas. In this case, we can have a move like knight d4. We're attacking the rook. Rook has to move, and now we're forking these 2 pieces. We're winning the rook. Okay, there's gonna be positions where your opponent's piece doesn't have a lot of space. In this case, the queen that is surrounded by their own pawns as well as the white's pawns. So we can play bishop c4. And where do you put the queen? There is no escape. So I guess best move is gonna be this. And yeah, just win the piece. This one is more technique than actual tactics, but very important to remember, which is a triangulation. Here you only have one move to win the game. If you play king d5, trying to win the pawn, now you run into this problem, which is the king is going to put you in a 6-1. Okay, so what will be the best move in the position? Now, the best move is going to be king d6. So you're going to have this triangle, right? That is the point. It's a triangulation. And the key thing to remember is, okay, you're going to get into a dark square. He's going to get as well into a dark square. That is the point, because if you get into the light square first, yeah, we just see what happens. You're gonna have to go here. He wins the pawn. So yeah, you have to go here first. Dark square. Now light square. He's gonna have to go anywhere else. Doesn't really matter. Let's say light square. But now you're winning the pawn. Okay. In this one, I'm turning on the engine just to show you the power of the 2 rooks on the 7th rank. So after rook c7. Best move in the position is to have an interference, right? Is to give up the knight, because you keep threatening this checkmate. Now the rook has to give up as well, and we have the same threat. So this is mate in 2. We can play rook h7, king g8, rook f7, checkmate. There will be positions where the opponent has a very weak back rank. So in this one, we can play a check here, which it seems like we are just giving up the knight. Not really. If they take the knight. Now we can play this, and this is a useless interference. So actually, the best move will be to move the king. Okay, perfect. Now we can move the knight even with tempo. Once they take, yeah, this is just losing for white. Alright, the X-ray attack, which is protecting or attacking a piece through other piece. It's like putting an X-ray on the board. So here we can play bishop takes on d7. If they take back, so we just take the queen. So they actually have to take the queen. And now we take back and we are up a bishop. We can use the same concept, the X-ray, to defend a position and to win material. So here you can go for this knight. And maybe black is assuming, oh, okay, yeah, we can just give a back rank checkmate. No, because we have this defense. Okay, we can defend the position through the other rook. Rooks are defending each other. If they take, perfect, you just defend with the other rook. In some positions, we're going to have this concept, the Sux one, which means any move the opponent makes or you make is going to lead into a worse position. However, in this one, any move that black makes is going to make them lose material. So in this case, we can play bishop e4, for example. And this pawn is currently defended as well as this one. Let's say that the king moves. So now we can win this pawn. And as well, we're also attacking this one. What happens if they don't do that? Let's say they play king b7. Okay, now we can go after this bishop. So king d6, king b6, king e7, and the bishop is trapped. Doesn't have any squares available. What will be the other move? Let's say they play bishop d7. They undefend the pawn. We can just win the pawn. Bishop f7. Okay, we just take the pawn on c6. So this is a classic example of a Sux one where you just have to waste a move here, attacking these two pawns, and now they have to make a move that is going to lose. Last one in this video. Thanks for watching all of it, guys. So here you can play knight e3. Queen is hanging. Notice that if they take, doesn't really, it's not that relevant because we can take back this queen. We can win it, right? We have an attack. However, we have an in-between move. We can play queen h5. We're threatening to win this pawn and checkmate. So, okay, they're gonna play h3. That's a sensible move. We can now win this bishop. And we go with the same idea. Okay, queen takes back. So we're putting a pin on this queen. This is completely winning. Thanks for watching, everyone. Join the channel for only $1. I hope to see you in the next one. Take care.